Hi, welcome to Cultist Simulator. I'm going to show you how to get started being an aspirant. Probably the easiest start, I'm just going to touch on this very briefly, is the physician, the doctor, just because he starts off with reason, which is probably your biggest blocker early game. And as soon as you've worked once, you get this back. You get 2 funds every time you work, the timer doesn't run out. You get health and 3 extra reason. So you kind of come out the gate with 4 reason, which lets you just push ahead massively. I'll talk about how to generate health and passion and everything else when I touch on the aspirant. And as you can see, the bright young thing gets 3 health and a bunch of funds, pretty much out, along with the auction house and the club. So does pretty well pretty quickly. But we are going to focus on the aspirant. So, the aspirant. This is where you'll probably end up a lot of the time, unless you play the doctor, the policeman, similar. You end up back here too. So, we have the work verb. I always set up down here. Well, actually, let's not do that this time, we're not going so far. You start off with the work verb. If you click on one of these, it will light up the cards that you can put in it. You can either put them on like that, or drag them in directly. We're going to start that running. I tend to play on fast forward and just pause when important things happen. The first thing that happens is you lose your job. Alas, I've lost my job. At least now I have a little time to rest and my health improves. Once again I dream of a glow beneath the filthy skin of the world, the light through the black wood, the pale door, the old man. This is the old man that you talk to in the hospital. I don't know if it's mentioned that yet. Anyway, we've got some health, we've got some funds, that's good. We're going to work on health for the time being because we don't really have much else to do. You'll notice when you drag something, it'll light up, well, we've already touched on that, but it'll light up what you can put in it as well, in reverse. Here we get some contentment and some passion. Contentment, this has a timer on it, it will eventually decay. If sometimes things decay into other things, restlessness decays into dread, some of the high lantern influences decay into fascination. It's never good if they turn into something else, ever. There's never, well, evidence, but that's an exception. But yeah, generally if something's running out, and you're not sure what it is, keep an eye on it, it may turn into something bad. Right, let's carry on. The first thing, the most important thing to do is double our health. Every minute here we're going to get a fund eaten, so we have to keep working for a little bit, doing manual labour, and there's a reason for that, because it generates vitality, and if you combine 2 vitalities you get an extra health. Every time a minute passes here, a random thing can happen. Generally it's bad, occasionally it's just nothing. Very occasionally it's a contentment here which counteracts dread, but you can't count on them. Anyway, you'll see our health is now fatigued. We've got to wait 60 seconds for it to come back, but you can dream on it, and it will only take 30 seconds because when you're tired, you rest. So we're going to unpause. This vitality we're going to keep here. Okay, now study is open. A letter from a solicitor, the old man at the hospital, the one I dream of, has named me as well. I'll hear more soon. So this is going to kind of start to unlock the story, such as it is. This can go all the way over here. This is just the time that constantly ticks. You'll see this says ingredient, not sure what it really means. The next will be more informative. Health. That's good, we've dreamt of health, it's come back quicker, so now we're going to work on health again to generate another vitality and some more money, although we're about to get a bunch of cash in the will here. See, so this, he's bequeathed me a sum of money, a packet of peculiar papers, poetry, riddles, metaphysical speculations. For the first time in months, here is fuel for my reason. Study is unlocked. So there's the bequest, there's a stack of cash, which is nice, and there is reason. So we're going to put reason there, that's another stat. So now we have 1 of each stat and 11 funds. Health, passion, reason. These numbers will sometimes change. For example, when we finish this manual labour and the health pops out, it'll go to 0 while it's fatigued. Don't worry too much about that. As long as you can see a health, it's there. It might just take time. Yeah, this ingredient's weird. First of all, while that's ticking out, we're going to study reason. The reason for that is it generates erudition in the same way that we get vitality here, and combining 2 things that you study will make 1 of the stat. You'll see, it'll make sense. The bequest can also be studied, so we're going to put that over here. And if you're not sure what something does, click on it. I must study it using either passion or reason, you see? Alright, job finished. We have health, vitality, funds, that's good. Now we have 2 vitality. This one's got 77 seconds left, this one's still got 3 minutes. This will be done in 29, so we'll have plenty of time to combine those two. In the meantime, what's coming next? The hook. Now the hook takes your temptation, if you have it yet, and throws back a restlessness. I think it just throws a restlessness, whatever happens. We'll see. You'll see it pop up. So here's our first erudition. Reason back here. We're going to combine these 2 vitalities now. At start, that will generate a health in 1 minute. Here's the hook here. What hunger drives me. Restlessness. This is the one, this is bad, this one, it turns into dread. And dread can be a killer. This is notoriety. If you have any mystique or notoriety, which we're not going to have for now, you will get a detective come to investigate, but avoid generating that just for the time being. Although you can in fact dream with paint. You want to avoid that because it's going to generate a lot of mystique early on. It's something you can rely on later, but until you've got an effective way to deal with detectives, it can be dangerous. Now you'll notice that we got 1 extra health, and we also got this skill, a stronger physique. If we want a 3rd health, which we're going to want at some point, in fact probably now, we need to get 4 vitalities. So last time it was 2, now it's 4, next one will be 6. You never really need 4 health, so don't worry too much about that. 2 is good, you can manage the entire game with 2, 3 is safe. So if you do want to get 3 now, well, here's what you do. Work on health, and study, don't dream on health, study health. And you let both of those run. While that's going, we can talk about this. So this is the detective investigating. If you have mystique, it will look for, first of all it'll look for a detective, then it'll look for mystique. If there's no detective and you have mystique, a detective will come. If you have detective and notoriety, it will generate evidence. Generate evidence 3 times and game over, pretty much. Or at least potentially. There's some ways out, but at this point in the game it's troublesome. So avoid mystique and notoriety where you can. There we are, vitality, stronger physique. We've got a health and a vitality there. Now the good thing is health, when you study it, only takes a minute. So that's going to get us 1 more here in a minute. This one we have to dream on to regenerate quicker. In the meantime we can start work on reason. That studying erudition was a waste. I'll have to come back to that because I went for 3 health, but again you don't necessarily need 3 health. This is going to be a problem because it's eaten the dread. Contentment here counters dread, but we don't have any contentment. That's going to be run out by the time this is completed. See, 21 seconds versus 41 seconds. So the numbers on these things won't show unless the timer is less than half. So you can see these vitalities are still quite full, but these ones are less than half, so they're about to burst. I'm just going to grab this job. Okay, so we've got our health back. We're going to work on health again. In the meantime, this study's nearly done. We're going to line up these vitalities. But yeah, if you get 3 dread with no contentment, it's game over. But there's an easy way to generate contentment. So 1 is fine. Okay, this is done. Collect all. Vitality. And health. The health can go there. Now we've got an affliction. Okay, so this is what we're preparing for. My life is slipping away. This will suck in a health, and it will take it'll return an affliction, which you have to dream of with either funds or vitality to turn back into a health. And you've got 3 minutes to do it, otherwise it's game over. Well, it's not game over, but you lose the health permanently. There is a way to change it back, but it's very, very late game, and it can be critical early on. Anyway, we're nearly done with this. This isn't too much of a concern. If this happens in your normal course, while you're still running up to this, you can just pause, cure this, and then go back to that loop again. We're going to take the funds out, the vitality and the health, which is now fatigued. We're going to combine this skill, a stronger physique, with these 4 vitalities. Now this is the only one, health is the only one you can really do with this, and we're going to start, if you want, the junior position at Glover and Glover. You probably should. I shouldn't have investigated the reason so early, that was foolish, but now I'll just have to hold this in place so I don't lose it. I'm not going to put any reason in, I'm just going to let it work and take the job as it comes. We'll talk about upgrading that job in the next video. Now, we are combining some health here, so we can just let that play out. Okay, see, now we have an affliction. We can dream about that with medicines or vitality, if we don't have any. So see, medicines funds went there. It took me a while to realise that you could use that. I was like, why can't I, how do I craft medicines? That doesn't make any sense. That job's doing fine. This study's nearly done. Then we'll need to study health again. Well, actually, at this point, I recommend using a vitality, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to use this video, I'm just going to use funds. But you should always try and do a vitality in the early game because funds are much more important, and this will last much longer. But I want to get to upgrading the reason. But normally you would just study or work your health when it returns, and that generates vitality. And you've got 3 minutes, so there's plenty of time. Just don't forget about it. Alright, so our health is renewed. We've got that. See, we did have plenty of time. And we've got a third health here. Now, if you want to do this again, see how it's 6 vitality now. You probably don't ever really need to deal with that, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Let's put that health there. Now, for that just earns us constant funds. We got 90 seconds, so in fact, I could have worked a health there if I wanted. You can also now work this skill, and if you add a health in, it will generate much more money. And also there's no risk of injury from working, which occasionally happens. But again, if you have an injury, just dream with vitality the same way you do with affliction, and that will fix that. It only takes 50 seconds as well, so you have time to get one in between the junior position if that's really something you want to do. The advantage is it will actually generate a little bit more money. The final glover and glover position will actually generate the most money, but this is not a bad way to do it early on. This one isn't bad. This is actually a nice counter to the dread. What have we got coming up next? Winter. That's nothing happening. Do you see how you can click here and see what's going to happen? But this one, this green one, a pleasant day, quite often generates a contentment, which will counteract this dread. So yeah, we can carry on. That saved us, so saving money. If you do ever need to generate contentment, because this is a critical level, dream with funds, and it will always generate contentment and only take 30 seconds. So you have plenty of time. This takes a minute to kill you. So as long as you catch it and you're not dreaming of anything, you should make it. We got a health back from the affliction. So now we're up to 3 health. We get a vitality for that, and 1 funds. Alas, just 1 funds. But it only takes 50 seconds, and it's reliable. The problem is because it constantly fatigues the health, it makes it very difficult to keep going. But it's another great way, if you can't study while you have the job on, and I forgot to study the reason, if you can't study while you have the job on, to generate a vitality. So it's kind of worth doing in that respect if you really want to save funds. We're going to add no diligence to this just yet, because first of all we're going to focus on getting 2 reason. It's actually before you upgrade this job, you want to ensure you have 2 reason, otherwise it's going to become really difficult, and you want to get to 3 as quickly as possible. Now, you know how I said this would generate contentment? It actually did, but this thing sucked it straight out. I don't know if you noticed that happened down there. So that's now solved. 1 dread, 1 contentment, no problem. Next we have the winter. Sorry, we'd already established that. Taking the funds. What have we got coming next? Fascination. Fascination is not something we have to worry about too much. It becomes a problem once you start dreaming. But for now we won't worry about it. We'll probably discuss it in the next video. This dread is neutralized. We get a fleeting memory. These are really powerful for a late game summon. Combined with a mid-game right. You can pull out some pretty ridiculous plays quite early. But they disappear very quickly, so if you're in the middle of a job, you can't use it. It's quite a clever mechanic. I quite enjoy it. Because it's fleeting. We got some more funds. Straight back to work. Now we've got 1 erudition. And you'll notice sometimes you get little things popping up, like lanterns or grails. They're just random. I'm not sure exactly what causes them, but they'll spit out a glimmering or an erudition. We need to go back and study another reason. A glimmering or an erudition or something like that that will give you a little bonus. Here's fascination. So this will take 3 fascination cards, which are like this but bright yellow. and if you get 3, it's game over. If you get 1, you want to stop dreaming, because these you can predictably get, or at least you can easily get. You stumble across them in the dream world really often, and there's other events which will trigger them. Dread is much harder to produce. The hook in the timer produces it pretty frequently, but other than that, it can be really troublesome. Yeah, so avoid generating fascination, avoid the dream world essentially when you have this up. And if you do have a fascination card in play and it gets sucked in, definitely avoid the dream world. What do we got next? Notoriety. So no mystique, no notoriety anywhere. We haven't done anything bad, so we're not going to get a detective. We may, if we're lucky, even get a contentment out of it. We've got some funds. Straight back to work. You want to keep those funds high. It's generating 1 every minute and it's taking 1 every minute, so at the moment we're just at break even. There's our secondary edition. Alright, now putting these together will generate a reason. And we'll get an equivalent one of this hardened physique. I think it's scholarship or something afterwards, but you don't need to worry about that. There's easier ways of increasing reason. In the meantime, you can start to drop some extra effort in at Glover and Glover to work on the promotion. This is timed out. We get a conscience of radiance. This has a value of lantern. This is values used in summoning and upgrading your cult. It's not something you need to worry about too much now, but it will come in later. And again, a fleeting memory. Really useful, but useless now. This is the detective investigation. No one around, no problem. And that's messing closer, sorry. It's just force of habit because there's other verbs to come in. Promotion. Mr. Alden, the supervisor of records, called me into his office. Sometimes this goes really dark. Called me into his office to recognise my diligence. I watch the mole in his neck as he talks and talks, but at the end of it I have a promotion. My new position is better paid and the desk stands by the street window, but I work directly for Mr. Alden now. Mr. Alden is known to be exacting. So now when you work, occasionally, well more often than not, probably 8 times out of 10, you're going to have a spare reason to put into here just to keep it going, otherwise you'll get your pay docked. We'll take an extra 30 seconds as well, but it's an extra 30 seconds for 1 extra gold, so it kind of works out. We're not going to worry too much about dreaming for the time being. What we are going to do, here we go, is get skill scholarship. As I said, the equivalent here, if you want to get another reason, you'll need 4-hour edition, but there are books we can get later that will do that. Here's our second reason, and now we're going to double up passion in exactly the same way. I'll leave this running just to play out to see what things we get. There's another fascination, nothing to worry about, we don't have any fascination. Next up we have the hook. That's going to generate a dread. Only a problem if we get 2 in a row followed by a despair. At that point you probably want to do some dreaming. Okay. See, I do not believe that you've probably understood the importance of our work here. This task will take your full attention. Add reason to satisfy Mr. Alden. Passion, glimmering. The glimmering is erudition, vitality equivalent. Again, you'll need 2 to double up, so now we're just going to immediately study passion again. Now if you want, here's the hook, and this is one of those little lore aspect things. You'll get moth, lantern, grail, heart, probably some other stuff I'm forgetting. And at the end of 30 seconds it'll spit out something a bit good or something a bit bad. Nothing too critical or dangerous. Fleeting memory and conscience of radiance from the completed fascination, and next up we've got winter, which means nothing's coming, so we can relax a little bit. Work done. 2 funds now, so we're actually we're making every 3 minutes an extra gold. Every 2 minutes, sorry. Every 3 minutes an extra gold. As long as you remember to go straight back to work immediately. But the fun slowly going up is a good thing. See, this gives us restlessness, that will turn into dread. Next we got winter, so that's okay. Let's let it continue. That gave us restlessness, moth. Yeah, of course it would. Moth is chaotic. So that's 2 dreads we've got in the bag now. We want to be really, really careful of a despair card. We've got our second glimmering, so we'll study 2 glimmerings there. And here comes despair. So it's probably worth, as a wrap up here, 2 funds. Mr. Alden didn't need us to stay that time, that's good. We're leaping ahead on money. Let's see, 1 dread, 2 dread. Oh no. And they'll stay around for 3 minutes. So now here, this Season of Despair, this is going to pop up the like split face in a second. Let's just grab both of these, Vivid Imagination and Passion. The Vivid Imagination lets you paint better than just using Passion, but again I don't recommend using it at this stage. You can use it for some mildly good avoidance techniques with the Suppression Bureau later, but yeah, it's definitely a mid-game tool, I would say. Late game it's not the best way to make money at all. There's a way to make 9, sometimes 12 gold every 80 seconds or so. Plus you'll have expeditions and other stuff that are generating cash, so work becomes less of a problem. Work overtime on Mr. Alden's assistance, so remember, add the reason. So we got 2 passion, 2 reason. I just wanted to show you painting as well very quickly. Oh, and how to deal with this. So, I've left it a bit late now, but if you have the funds, and it's really only a last, like, ditch attempt, if you dream for a tincture of opium, it will generate contentment. You can leave it to the last minute. See, it's only going to take another 16 seconds. And that was actually probably a bit of a mistime, although good, because here comes another dread from the hook. Evil, evil game. But there's a green coming, so we'll get a free contentment. That's nice. But this is going to spit out a restlessness, which will turn into dread. We're about to lose our job. Let's go back to work. Oh, we can talk about how to get your job back as well. If you get a demotion, there's a contentment for the dream, so that cost us 1 fund, which is a bit of a problem. But it's better than a kick in the eye. Now this has got 2 dread. I can take a risk here. It'll either take a restlessness, or sorry, it'll either take a dread or a contentment. So I could immediately dream for another contentment and pray that it takes it the second time. Or I can force it to take the dread and guarantee it takes the contentment, which I'm going to do because it's a better investment of cash. Otherwise I'm just throwing money away. Although we've got 1 contentment coming out here as well, right? Which is good news. Which I had completely forgotten about. Hi! Sorry, I was recording this as I was playing, and as I'm watching back I'm realising I'm being an idiot. If you dream with dread and then add contentment, it cancels them both out. Instead I'm doing some crazy waiting game hoping that things will play out, but no, don't. Dream on dread and contentment. I'll cover that again in the next video. But back to the live play. Yeah, see, it adds an extra 10 seconds afterwards. Okay, see, if you don't stay late, you just get 1 fund. Alright, we're going to let this burn out as well. Yeah, see, it took the dread. So now this contentment's wasted because it goes so quickly. That's why I wanted to hold off. But now I can consider paying a funds. 2 dreads is not the end of the world unless a hook comes. We've got fascination short term. That shouldn't be a problem. What I'm going to do is work. Although there's always the risk of injury. And it takes a little longer. Okay. Another fascination. It's always better, especially in the early game, not to pay for contentment if you can possibly help it, because you can always pay for it last minute. Your dream verb is going to be pretty free for the most part, until you research this bequest. Of course you can get on with this whenever you want. It's just going to push the game forward very, very quickly, and reason will become a concern quite rapidly afterwards. See, I got an injury for unskilled labour. That's one of the risks. What you want to do, because you've got so much health, you can study for a health here, and that will allow you to dream with vitality in a minute, and you've got like a little while there for it to cool down. This is why I don't recommend let's put a fleeting. Can we put a fleeting? Really? What does that take? Sorry, I haven't painted with... Really, does it only take restlessness? That's interesting. I haven't painted with just passion for so long. So vivid imagination allows you to put almost anything in there, which is very good. But that painting is not going to go well. But yeah, sorry, what was I saying there? Vitality. We can dream with the... There. Save us a little bit of money. This painting is not going to sell. Oh, okay, it gave us a glimmering. That's interesting to know. But it didn't generate any cash. Yeah, so you can start researching this at any point, and if you use reason, it will give you one thing which you can change later, and if you use passion, it will give you another. Temptation, power, or temptation, enlightenment. But just dreaming with the temptation and the alternate thing will flip it for you. You can also throw health in if you want to go for a sensation victory, but don't worry about that for too much right now. So yeah, 2 dread. We might get another contentment before the day's out, so again, just trying to save funds. Right, if you need to get your job back, all you need to do is go and talk with persuasion. It takes 30 seconds, you get it back, you get a demotion, so then you have to go through the hoops of whatever the previous step was. But that pretty much brings us to the point of investigating the quest, right? There you go. You see, you've got to go back from the junior position all the way back up. I think we've dealt with stuff. If we need to see 3 funds, it's really bad. You really want to keep on top of your job at all times, otherwise it's very easy to run out of money. I have to flatline here for a long time, but whenever you're ready you can start investigating the quest. It actually gives you a little bit of a boost, and will give you a chunk of funds, but it will throw everything else for a loop. It's going to start eating into those funds pretty quickly, so you just want to spend a little bit of time here getting into the habit of just looping your job and not letting it expire. Alternately, just play the doctor early on, because it doubles the money that you make in the same time period from the start. If you want, you can always take the Glover and Glover route. You'll just never lose your job if it times out. If you forget about it, it's not a problem. But yeah, if you do this, that's going to get you kind of started on everything. There's your first temptation, which the hook will take. Notes on a possible collaborator that you can study. Your first bit of law, which is determined by whether or not you use passion or reason. And directions to a shop, which will open up the explore verb. But we will talk about those in the next video. Anyway, that's it. Let me know what future content you want to see on this, if there's anything in particular, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!